Erik ten Hag may not have the perfect squad to work with just yet. However, he does have the backing of one of the best football academies anywhere in the world. An academy that churns out talent year after year. And this season is no different. There are several players which could come into the Manchester United first team and make a huge difference. So, let's take a look. So the first player on the list is actually a player we signed into the academy this summer. His name is SuoK, and he's a really talented young central midfielder. A player that when you first watch him instantly strikes you as someone who is very technically secure on the ball. And this could be useful for a player looking to operate in the first phase, playing relatively deep in the midfield, either as a 6 or in a double pivot. He likes to drop into these areas to receive, and like I said, his technical security really helps him here and gets him out of tight situations. His ability to quickly turn and flick the ball around the corner is really useful when under pressure. However, so far I actually prefer him when he is facing play, when things are in front of him, because this is when he has a real ability to manipulate the opposition. You will see shimmies, you will see shoulder drops, and you'll see quick changes of direction, dribbling with both feet to draw an opponent in before going past them. And this is where Kone is really strong. He has the ability to burst over the first 4 or 5 yards. There's good acceleration there to move past an opponent and move past them. But also, he can open the legs up a little bit. He can go for longer distances because he's got a really good engine to him, which you don't always see in younger players. But he has this ability to drive further. It could be 15 yards, 20 yards, 25 yards. With open space in front of him in the midfield, Kone is excellent at driving into open space. Really good carrying the ball forward, but also, like I've said already, actually dribbling and taking players on. As you would expect from a midfielder, he's also good with his passing. Exactly what you need in midfield. Kone is a really good passer, but a really positive passer. Someone who is always looking to move the ball forward through the lines at the earliest opportunity, particularly when he's playing quick 1 or 2 touch football. When you are popping the ball out in these areas, Kone loves to quickly fire the ball forward. That could be into the winger, into the attacking midfielder, into the striker, or it could be a through ball in behind. And again, the fact that Kone is 2-footed here really helps him. It opens up his angles, it allows him to pass to his left-hand side, but also his right-hand side, and it makes him a really good ball player. But I think actually what stands out the most for me at the moment for Kone, and his chances of moving into the first team, is actually his physicality. For me, this is one of the most important things for a young player moving from academy football into senior football, particularly in the Premier League. Physically, you have to be able to handle yourself. And Kone can. Just under 6 foot, very strong, really good at using his body, really quick, covers the yards really well. Over those first few yards, he's got a great burst, but also large distances. This guy can cover ground really effectively, and then once into dueling situations, really strong in the tackle. He doesn't overcommit himself. You know, some players like to charge at a player, overcommit and get beat. Kone understands that sometimes you have to pull out of the challenge to get into a better position. But also, when he can go strong into the tackle, he's going to be there. And that could be really useful as a sort of Obi Martin backup this season. Obi Martin technically is one of our only players who can operate in tight spaces in midfield. We will probably have to play without him at some point this season, because naturally that happens. Kone is the sort of player who can replace the technical ability, but also bring something defensively. Another player that could certainly do something for United this season is the young left-back Harry Amas. Now, of course, we saw him in pre-season, and he actually played really well, but he's yet to be given his opportunity in competitive football. I think at some point this season it will happen. I do not expect him to be a regular, but with the fitness issues we nearly always have at fullback, I would be surprised if Amas doesn't get a chance at some point this season. It's all about, when he gets that chance, taking it. So what's he going to bring to the team? Again, a real technical ability on the ball. This is a theme with a lot of the young Manchester United players. Amas is another player who is excellent in tight spaces. He trusts his first touch and is brilliant under pressure. He can work in these areas, move the ball into tight spaces, and do so effectively. What he can also do, though, and what he also brings, is a real tactical versatility. Because he is so technically secure on the ball, you can almost put him into any position on the football pitch. That can be wide on the left, it can be deep on the left, it can be inside from the left-hand side. He's always going to bring you security on the ball. He's always going to look after the ball and bring a technical empathy. That could be really useful for United. We know that Ten Hag likes his fullbacks to rotate and invert and overlap and underlap. They have quite a complex role at times. Amas is the sort of player who has the skill set where he can do all of those jobs. And I think one of the reasons for that is, of course, the technical ability, but also the fact that he's really agile, a real low centre of gravity. It allows him to turn under pressure in these tight spaces, but also that acceleration over the first few yards. He's not the quickest player in the world, and I don't think he ever will be, but the low centre of gravity, combined with a quick acceleration over the first 2 or 3 yards, makes him really difficult to stop, and that makes him potentially a really useful attacking fullback for us this season. We know currently we have no left-footed fullbacks fit. Amas is one, and he could bring something to this team, getting forward, overlapping Marcus Rashford or Garnacho, allowing them to come inside. Amas definitely could play a role this season. Once in these areas, what's he going to bring? A decent end product. I think we saw it in glimpses in pre-season. His ability to deliver into the final third. Now, I think the delivery needs work. It needs to develop a consistency. But what I like is that he's not afraid of doing it. You see, in the modern game, a lot of players will get into the final third and not take the chance, not take the risk, because they want to keep the ball. Amas isn't that sort of player. Once in this area, a bit like Luke Shaw, he is going to try and deliver. Importantly, with his left foot, and actually just generally speaking, his quality. He definitely has a chance this season. Another player who has a chance this season, because we've actually already seen him this season, is Toby Collier. He broke through into the first team in pre-season, and I think he will kind of maintain a role within and around the first team over the course of the season. I do not expect him to be a regular starter, but I think as a squad player he is pretty handy for us this season. The reason for that is because of the physicality that he brings. The physical intensity he brings is absolutely phenomenal. He doesn't stop really. He is always moving. Particularly out of possession, he can cover ground and then get stuck into the tackles. He's really good at using his body. And again, that's going to help him kind of make that transition from youth football to professional senior football. The fact that physically he can handle himself, he can look after himself, he can protect himself. But not only look after himself like a young player does, actually physically he comes across as a 27-year-old in the centre of the park. Really useful, and defensively United need that. Someone who can relentlessly cover the ground. I think that's of huge value to this Manchester United team. But importantly, Collier does bring stuff on the ball as well. And again, I would say his best attribute at times is the fact that he moves a lot. You know, he's always buzzing about the pitch, he's always moving. Now at times that does mean tactically he's going to hurt the system a little bit, but it does also mean that a player on the ball is always going to have an option. If the centre-back has the ball, Collier will make sure he finds a way to be free to receive the pass. The same if the left-back's got the ball. That might mean sprinting 15 yards to the left wing. But if he has to do it, Collier will do it, just to make sure he is always an option on the ball. And I feel that United could use that sometimes. Use that player who is always available. Because sometimes we lack that in our deeper phase. In terms of once he's actually got the ball, he's a fairly safe player, a fairly limited player, I feel. In possession, you are going to get ball retention. You know, he's going to keep the ball for his team, but not be overly expansive. Although I do feel that something he could bring to the game is a drive in the middle of the pitch. Ball carrying ability, mainly because of the physical reasons. When players are coming towards him, he uses his body well, he uses his arms well, he's got quite a broad upper frame, he can keep players away from him. That drive could be useful to United. Again, we have lacked that over the past few seasons. A player that can properly drive with power through the middle of the pitch, I guess Scott McTominay is the only one really. Collier could replace that quite nicely, and again, I expect him to be part of the first team this season. I do just wonder if Kone might come in and compete for that spot though. So keep an eye on that. Another player who will provide competition for the first team is Ethan Wheatley. Of course, in a very different position. Wheatley is very much a striker, but he will want a spot and he will want minutes in the first team this season. Currently, of course, Xerxes and Højlund would be ahead of him in the pecking order. But naturally, teams tend to have a third choice striker who does get a sprinkling of minutes over the course of the season. And Wheatley will want to be that, although he does have competition, which we'll talk about shortly. In terms of Wheatley, what he brings to the team is a really nice physical foundation and again a really good physical base because he is tall, he is strong, but he's not clunky. He's quite lean in his body shape, but also reasonably quick as well. As a foundation, that's a really nice profile to work with. Someone that physically can offer most things. In terms of technically what he wants to do, I would say he's sort of a hold-up striker, but not a target man. He's not someone where you're going to go long to his head and his chest all day, but he does like to drop a little bit deeper and try and link the play. And in terms of what United have been doing in the opening weeks of the season, that could make sense. We have seen a sort of false 9 or a 9.5 at times. Wheatley could offer you something different. Now, Technically, he is not as secure as the likes of Xerxes or a Mason Mount, but physically he does bring something. That ability to hold the ball up and keep the ball away from the opposition, stop the centre-backs getting there, that could be quite useful. I think also if he could develop his ability to deal with balls in the air, you know, can he control it with his chest or knock it on with his header? That's something that could be a real weapon for United, if he develops in that area. Right now he hasn't got it, but he could add it to his game. Something he does have to his game, though, is the ability to go the other way. And that's why I quite like Wheatley early on. I like what I've seen. Because you see a lot of players that can come short. You see a lot of players that can go in behind. Wheatley is that blend of the two. He does have the ability to go the other way. Again, he's not the quickest in the world, right? He's not Mbappe going in behind. But he's quick enough. And once in front of goal, he has a real composure about him. Particularly as he has developed in the past probably 6 or 7 months or so. A real composure in front of goal. And personally, when watching him in the academy, I always feel like he's going to make the right decision, the right shot selection. Whether that be taking a quick snapshot, you know, half a second, he's shooting. Or whether it be slowing it down a little bit. It might be rounding the goalkeeper. It might be lifting the ball over the goalkeeper. He has really good shot selection. And it's because of that constant composure in front of goal. And that's what you need in a striker. Manchester United are going to need goals this season because we've struggled with it a lot over the past few years. Wheatley has provided goals in the academy and will back himself to do something similar in the first team this season. Like I hinted at earlier though, there is another young striker that will want to be third choice for Manchester United this season, and that is Obi Martin, another young striker, one that we signed this summer, and someone that brings, again, something a little bit different to the Manchester United attack, and that's the luxury that Ten Hag has here. Lots of different profiles, different options. However, once again, certainly a physical profile. This guy is massive. He's like 6'3" tall at a very young age, and he's into that frame already. You know, he's not a skinny player. He is big, he is strong, he is powerful. And to be honest, I personally wouldn't want to be marking him. I wouldn't want to try and deal with him because the physical base is phenomenal. He's quick, he's strong, a bit like Wheatley, but actually, arguably, at times he appears even bigger. The way he uses his body is really effective. However, with Obi Martin, what we are talking about more, in my opinion, is more of the technical ability. The footwork in tight spaces. You don't always get it from a player that is this size. This man has it. The ability to turn, to be agile, to drop a shoulder, and manipulate the opposition is really there. He loves this sort of move where he's going to drop a little bit deeper to receive the ball into this sort of spot here. The opposition centre-back is going to follow him. Now, normally what you get from a striker here is linking work. They will drop the ball off here or they'll pop it out wide. This guy's a little bit different. He's audacious, he's ambitious with the ball. He'll actually take the man on himself because he trusts his technical ability with the ball. And I think it's the fact that he knows he's good with both feet. On the dribble, his left foot and right foot are very effective. And I always say it, that makes it really useful when dribbling because you can keep the ball away from the opposition. If the opposition's on your right, you move the ball with your left foot and vice versa. It makes you really difficult to kind of force one way. And that's what Obi Martin has to his game. Add to that the power, the running power, the ability to carry the ball and really stride through these spaces. It makes him a real kind of problem to try and deal with from a defensive point of view. A bit like Wheatley, he can also go in behind. He has the pace to do that, the power to do that, the stride length to get into these positions. It'll be interesting to see physically if he could cope with senior footballers at centre-back. I'm not so sure. But if he can, again, once in the shooting positions, perhaps his composure isn't of the level of Wheatley at the moment, but his range of finishing certainly is, if not a little bit better. Again, he's got that dink over the goalkeeper. He can blast it in at the near post. He can kind of wrap it, curl it towards the far post. He can use his left foot. He can use his right foot. He really brings the complete package, kind of a bag of every trick. He can do everything on the ball. And that's a really useful profile for Manchester United, although I would probably suggest this season is 1 year too early. Now, whether any of these players actually go on to become regular Manchester United starters or not remains to be seen. It's too early to predict. The development of a young player is extremely volatile. Injuries, fitness, luck all play a massive part, as well as mentality of the player, the willingness to improve. However, one thing that is very clear is that should Ten Hag get in a spot of bother this season with his squad, should he be light at left back or low on central midfielders due to injury, he has players in the academy that are right there and very close to being ready to play for the first team. SuoK is the one for me that looks the most prepared, the most ready. Collier physically is definitely going to be an option for United this season, and I do still believe that Amas will get minutes at left back at some point, as well as Wheatley up front. I think he will get his chance in the team at some point. Ten Hag has options. It's an absolute dream to work with, in my opinion. That's what I think. I think there's some really good United players here, some great young players that will play a part this season and hopefully seasons in the future as well. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments down below, some of the other young players you are excited about. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.